Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ Gordon. I am meeting every single person on the planet. That's why it's called JJ Meets World. I'm glad you're along for the ride. Today's journey involves my good buddy Devon. I've known him since he was a little fry, and now, gosh, he's out there and he's making movies, and it's just an inspiring conversation to hear him talk and be so excited about all the great stuff out there in the film community. Plus, Tucker and I have an extended conversation about Cherry Coke, longer than you think someone could actually talk about Cherry Coke. All of this and so much more on today's episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. JJ Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. JJ has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
I know that we had a whole episode dedicated to books that we liked, but I just finished listening to an audiobook. You know how when they adapt like a book, like a famous book, into a movie, and everyone's like, oh, the book is always better than the movie. I think that almost the exact opposite can be said for audiobooks that are based off of like nonfiction real stories, like a memoir, because when you can hear the person use the inflection. One of the books I recommended in that podcast was Born Standing Up, the Steve Martin book about his time during stand-up, because you hear him deliver the "excuse me." I listened to one while I was on vacation this last week called My Footprint, and it's Jeff Garlin, who is one of the main characters in Curb Your Enthusiasm, talking about reducing his weight, his physical footprint, as well as his carbon footprint. And so it's a year in his life. And I read the book, and the book made me laugh so hard it brought me to tears. But the audiobook had me rolling on the floor. I couldn't believe how damn funny the book was now that I could listen to the audiobook version of it. So JJ Meets World listeners, if you're looking for a great audiobook experience, My Footprint by Jeff Garlin, well worth your time. And Tucker, you'll appreciate this because they tweak the audiobook. They add some stuff that's not in the regular book. So it goes, My Footprint by Jeff Garlin, read by the author as being read to Leonard Nimoy. And so Leonard Nimoy is in the recording studio, and he goes, okay, this is my book, and I'm reading it to Leonard Nimoy. Hello, Leonard. And then Leonard Nimoy is like, hey, Jeff, how's it going? And he goes, Good. Are you ready for this book? And he goes, I sure am. And then you hear like crunch, crunch, crunch. He's like, Leonard, stop eating chips. Don't tell me what to do, Jeff. And so and like
extra features.
Yeah, this Leonard Nimoy thing runs through the entire book. Like at one point you hear him snoring. He's like, Leonard, wake up. We're not paying you to sleep. And it's incredibly funny. And getting to hear someone, because the book includes a lot of frustrations, things like, damn it, why did I eat that bag of chips? You get to hear him really get into it. And he's got a whole sequence where he goes to Ed Begley Jr.'s house to find out about how to live greener, because Ed Begley Jr. apparently is super environmentally conscious.
Oh,
so
okay.
he's got a turf instead of a lawn, so he doesn't have to water it.
Okay.
He's got solar panels. They've got a gray water system in the house that collects all this stuff so that he can use it like to water
That's
plants.
a term I've always
like
disliked is gray water,
Gray water.
but I understand the benefits.
And he explains about how he takes the bus to Jeff, and Jeff is like, I took the bus once. It wasn't worth it. But it's a really great book. And every now and then I think it's important that, you're consuming JJ Meets World, and I love that. And thank you so much. Whether this is the first episode of this podcast you've ever listened to, or you've listened to all 200 plus episodes, I really appreciate that. But Tucker and I are constantly listening to podcasts and listening to audiobooks and reading books and watching movies and listening to albums. So I think it's a good thing. Like, we want to share our experiences with you as well. Have you listened to any new music at all lately?
I have not been. No, really. What I've been listening to have just been copious amounts of podcasts. Podcasts have been what has kept me sane during all of this COVID quarantine stuff. And so I'm basically listening to everything that's come out of the Your Mom's House studios. So Your Mom's House, where my mom's at, Dr. Drew After Dark, when the Honeydew was over there, but now he's on his own thing. So listen to the Honeydew. Josh Potter's going to have a new podcast out pretty soon. And listening to podcasts has been, it almost feels like you're hanging out with the people who are having that conversation. And we've been recording some podcasts this weekend for JJ Meets World. And I think these ones kind of fall into that same category where you're going to feel like you're hanging out with the person we're hanging out with.
Yeah, if you need to yell at your stereo or listening device, go ahead and yell at it, because we might say something you disagree with. Or, yes, finally, someone else also thinks that thing I've been thinking.
This young man today, though, is not disagreeable in the least. I found him to be very agreeable. I like him a lot. He's really cool.
Devon Solwold is our guest today, and I've known Devon since he was he came to the improv classes I taught at the FMCT way before he was even old enough to drive. Yeah, I remember, like, his mom would drop him off, and she was like, "Are you doing more classes? Because Devon really likes this improv." And I'm like, "Yeah, well," and it was clear to me when I first met him that this kid was gonna go places and was super talented. I enjoy watching everything that he's doing because he's constantly active, and he's a guy who Teddy Roosevelt described people like him as those who engage in the arena of life. And I think he absolutely does that. We talk a lot about movies today.
He's a filmmaker.
He's going to SCAD. You'll find out about SCAD as we go on. We talk about his time doing theater in Fargo and Moorhead. We get to talk about collaborating, and then even how you can see a short film he made in conjunction with Regal Cinema and Coca-Cola. That's a big deal. And just so you know, I was drinking a Diet Coca-Cola the entire time we were recording this as well. No Pepsi products to be found in the studio.
Unfortunately.
For you, not for me.
Yeah.
I'm a Coca-Cola
By the way,
guy.
how do you feel about Cherry Coke?
About Cherry Coke?
Yeah.
I dislike it.
Okay,
But
good.
I also dislike regular Coca-Cola. I love Diet Coke.
Okay.
I think that people, your taste buds are either wired for Diet Coke or regular Coke. I've never tried a Diet Cherry Coke. I don't even know. Does that exist?
It probably does, but it shouldn't. They should just they did during Prohibition. They should just go and find every can of it and open it up into a river somewhere, so we don't have to drink that anymore. You and I
Imagine what the fish would do if they had to drink all of that Diet Cherry
all
Coke.
that aspartame. Yeah,
Mhm.
You and I agree on this topic because if I'm going to drink a Coke product, it's going to be Diet Coke. Diet Coke has always been my I'm flying in an airplane soda because of the options. They never had Pepsi products up there, but I am a Pepsi drinker through and a
We've reached 30,000 feet, and the beverage card will be coming through. Your
Yeah.
choice will be Diet Coca-Cola or a punch in the face.
yeah ginger ale, orange juice, and no one should be drinking hot coffee up in an airplane where
Oh,
turbulence
right.
happens.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been next to somebody and then turbulence hits and they spill coffee everywhere? I have.
A couple of times I was the person who's like, you know what, I'm going to try coffee this time instead of doing Diet Coke. And I was like, I'm stupid. This was really dumb.
Mhm.
What am I? I'm putting this person in danger. I'm putting myself in danger when I do this. I'm a Pepsi and a Dr. Pepper drinker. And this weekend, I decided to treat myself to a little bit of fast food at a burger restaurant that shares my mother's maiden name. It's a Scottish surname. And if I ordered Dr. Pepper, and I feel like they gave me Cherry Coke, which I don't even know if they have Cherry Coke. So it was probably flat Dr. Pepper. And that was when I realized that Cherry Coke might just be flat Dr. Pepper and that they're just repackaging it and just selling it as cherry.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to a couple scientists about that and get
Now,
some data.
Side note, did you know that you went to the place, this particular fast food restaurant, that Donald Duck would like?
Yeah.
He would love this place.
He would love it.
They scientifically have figured out the best way to serve their Coke products.
Really?
So they have their Coke syrup in metal containers, not bags, and they are kept at a colder temperature. So when the syrup is introduced to the soda water, it is actually already cold. And so if you did a sip by sip comparison, this is the scientifically best way you could possibly serve Coca-Cola. It's why I've done this on more than one road trip in my life. I've swung through the drive-through at this restaurant that at this point we could name, but we'll just keep being
Here's a
vague.
hint. It's not Burger King and it's not Wendy's.
Sure. And it's not McDowell's
No, it's not.
from the movie
Definitely
Coming to
not.
America.
And they used to have the Monopoly game there.
Mhm.
I think this particular place needs to check the settings on their algorithm because I don't think that they're fine tuning their soda dispensing.
Interesting.
All that great. Maybe
You
that's
should've- you should've
coronavirus. I
complained.
don't know.
You
I
should have
just
called their
can't,
CEO, up and been like, honk, honk.
I would rather complain to our listeners in podcast forum than like do the JJ Gordon approach and write a strongly worded letter
Yeah.
to the manager of this place.
I do like a good strongly worded letter. It's the principle of the thing is what I'm constantly saying. Well, the principle of this episode is our conversation with Devon. And also, this episode, we started recording before we really like got into the intro of it. So this is going to sound a little bit different than the
Yeah.
normal intro of an episode. So don't worry. There's nothing wrong with your device.
Yeah.
Enjoy, folks.
JJ Meets World.
People get so uncomfortable being in front of a microphone. Like,
Yeah.
here's the thing. We can have a conversation like this.
Yeah.
But the second it's like this, people start to kind of clam up a little bit.
Yeah. Same thing with the camera.
Right.
It's like it's that one eye. It's like that thing that's like
A camera is
holding you
someone who is
accountable.
staring at you.
Yeah.
It's someone who's just staring at you. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this person's staring at me right now. What am I supposed to do about it? And
I
they're
sh-
giving no emotion when they do it.
Yeah, I shoot or I've shot a lot of videos for my dad's company like he started a business in 2009 and literally ever since 2009 ever since I was like a 5th grader I've been doing his video media for everything. And so we're always, he's always in front of the camera cuz he's the face of the company and everything. And it's interesting to see even how he's such a charismatic guy. And we always get to that point. He always gets it. And he's got his own process. But like right at the beginning for 10 years, it's always just gaff after gaff after gaff. And he's just like, I think he feels intimidated by that camera. And then he's just kind of gets in his own head and everything. So it's interesting. It doesn't matter who you are. It can just really throw kind of anybody
It
off.
sounds like you've got the footage to do an awesome supercut.
I have lost it. And it sucks because I'm usually editing when he's right next to me, but I just cannot help but totally lose it when he goes off because I can almost like identify with everything that he's all the little issues and like, idiosyncratic things that he does.
Like all of a sudden someone makes a hand. Like, why did you make this hand gesture? You've never done that before. Like, why did that seem
Yeah.
natural right
Yeah.
there?
He becomes he's like a different person. It's just like totally ambushed. Like it just feels like I see it in his eyes and he's, kind of
Devin,
totally could do a
have you
supercut.
ever watched the documentary Winnebago Man?
No.
That needs to be on your short list to watch in the
Winnebago
future.
Man? Could I
Winnebago
add that
Man.
to my letterbox right
Please
now?
do.
Yeah.
I got to add that and
That-
Leap of Faith.
That is a must-see documentary,
Okay.
especially about watching a guy melt down while trying to do takes for a video.
Okay.
In fact, to me, Winnebago Man is the documentary that really proved YouTube could work because it is a pre-YouTube documentary about some video that someone shared with somebody else that got hosted on some
Yeah.
site. And
He's a
you know,
Winnebago salesman, and
in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
and
right?
someone leaked all the
Winnebago.
outtakes of his commercial where he's just cursing constantly, and he has got some amazing one-liners in it. But I didn't realize this. I found this out recently. His son is, I believe, the owner of Bellator Fighting.
What?
Yeah, so the primary competitor to the UFC
Yeah?
is owned by the son of Winnebago Man.
That is so
The
funny.
guy who directed Winnebago Man shot a pilot for a television series about a fake news center in Fargo, and I was cast as the sports director. And so he and I had this amazing day where we went out to like an NDSU tailgating, and like it was total and complete BS. And he's like, "So you're the sports guy?" And I'm like, "That's what they cast me as. I know nothing about sports." He goes, "That's perfect. Use that. Be the guy who happened into this job, but really, would rather be talking about pasta
Right.
instead." And so I was
So
like,
the
my
red
God.
team grabs the ball and goes over there.
it was like, "What do you think is going to make this game different? Defense?" And then we went to like the turf afterwards, and we filmed at the turf, and we had a great time during that day.
We've officially started, so
Yeah, let's
Oh
get
my gosh,
okay.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that.
we're rolling this
Yeah.
thing. Devin, welcome to JJ Meets World. Good to see
Happy
you.
to be here.
I think
Thank you for having
I think
me.
I'm leaving all of that in.
Yeah, I think so too.
All of
I
it
think it's
staying
good stuff. Devin, I've known you since you were a little guy, and probably the most talented kid I had ever met. When it
my
came
gosh.
to improv, I was just telling my wife today about a scene you did. You probably don't even remember it, but it was at the FMCT, but it was a scene where you and your scene partner found a $100 bill, and it was about deciding what to do with that $100 bill. And at one point, I remember you had a great thing. It's like, we could give it to charity. We could. And like, it was such a great burn in that moment. And it was great. It was a wonderful scene. And you were just so talented beyond your years. And then, of course, at Moorhead High, like I saw you as Tarzan, which is a pretty daring thing in high school to be swinging around on vines with a loincloth on.
Oh yeah, my knees I don't think are like recovered from it. Like I've noticed like there's little clicks and clacks that used to not come from my knees after that, because I was just always on the ground and had my knee pads on and stuff from time to time.
Well,
But,
it's not like you stood erect either. Like you kind of had this, like you had this lumbering, like, because I mean, you were raised by gorillas, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of had that gorilla look to you while you moved around the stage.
funny thing about that too, there was we had always watched a lot. Well, at the time, Planet of the Apes, the new trilogy by Matt Reeves and the one that just came out with Andy Serkis. They had a ton of featurettes about how all of the monkey actors and all of the physical kind of people who are working in the mocap suits and everything, how they kind of studied movements and behavior of apes and everything. And there's one guy who plays a featured role in all of the trilogy, but he also plays a lot of the background apes too. And he's got a lot of he was kind of he was an interesting guy as far as an actor is concerned. He was very into his work and everything, but he had all these really insightful videos about how you just kind of slump into that character and how you finally get into that ape-like, mannerisms and everything like that. And we always kind of used to laugh because he was such a character on screen. And then the next year I was at Savannah College of Art and Design, and they have a film festival, and the War of the Planet of the Apes movie was premiering there, and he was there. And so I got to go and tell him, I'm like, I used to study you all the time because we would all watch your videos, while we were rehearsing for Tarzan, and I was Tarzan in the music. He was probably just like, okay, you were, Tarzan in a high school play, whatever. But he was super nice about it. I got a picture with him and stuff. But
Or he goes home and he's like, oh, finally, someone, like, I knew that all that
Found
hard
my
work was going to
audience.
come out and it was going to be there.
his work did not go unnoticed with us. He was kind of our champion of ape culture.
I find that sometimes people get so obsessed with celebrity and like that's somebody I know and that they make a fool out of themselves. Here's a great story. I have a friend, Francisco, and when we were in high school, we were at Barnes Noble, and Kristen Rudrud was there, who was in the movie Fargo,
of course,
amongst other movies. Drop Dead Gorgeous. She's plays a former pageant girl who's doing a commercial for St. Paul pork products. I think Kristen is easily one of the funniest comedians I've ever seen, and I wish she was in more stuff because she nails the roles. It's like she's great
in
as
Fargo,
the wife.
She's incredible.
Right.
And that's the only one I've seen. But
So she's also in Pleasantville for about 6 seconds. She's playing bridge with Joan Allen or Hearts. I don't know what game they're playing. Something.
yeah,
They're playing cards at her breakfast table.
I love it.
And so she doesn't have any lines, at least not any on-screen lines. And so my friend Francisco was like, we saw her and she was like, oh, I gotta go introduce myself. Like, what movie is she in? I was like, oh, she's in Fargo and Pleasantville and something else. And he goes, Miss Rudder, I loved you in Pleasantville, which would be like this huge screw you to her. But
That is so funny.
She was so gracious, and then she signed his sneaker.
Oh.
So what a nice moment.
I was on a plane with her one time. I think we were kidding because she, her daughter was in a lot of musicals, kind of in the same group back in the day. And I even then there was like an element of being starstruck, just seeing like we're on the same plane as one of the leads in Fargo. Like that's a big deal.
I helped her move from an apartment on the 5th floor to an apartment on the 6th floor.
How'd you land that?
My Aunt Deb knows her. And so my Aunt Deb was at a line benders rehearsal and she goes, listen, my friend Kristen is moving. Would anyone help her? And so a bunch of us kind of
Perfect.
begrudgingly went over there and helped her move. And her thank you gift to me was the Academy screener VHS tape of Fargo.
Oh, that is classic.
And I was
pretty
like,
cool.
The VHS.
That's pretty cool.
And
Yeah,
she's,
that is
you know,
pretty
she's
dope.
got like a whole shelf full of stuff, you know, like, of
Oh
course.
my gosh.
But even at the time, so she was she was
awesome.
interesting because she didn't own a computer, but she loved digital photography.
Yeah.
So she had maybe
That's
like
right.
150 like before SD cards. I don't even know what they were called at that time.
It wasn't
thick ones,
It wasn't
yeah.
CFast, but it was something like the same
Yeah.
form factor.
Right? Yeah. And
Spooky.
so
That's intimidating.
just a huge box full of them. And she's like, "Well, yeah, I'd love to see what's on some of these." And I'm like, "I'd love to see what's on some of these
She'd
too."
fill one up and then go, well, that one's done.
Oh my gosh.
Then we grab the next one.
That is so funny.
And to me, it was like that was the perfect. That's to me is an example of like the bridges of technology, right?
Right.
So we get to the point of where you're used to film, like when you snap 21 photos, that roll is done.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's applying that mentality to this new disc, which is like, no. You pull them off, and then you just need one of these for the rest of time. But
It's kind of crazy. I've got a little it's like not even the size of like my thumbnail, like my literal thumbnail, and it's 128 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And that's more than some native hard drives for Mac computers. You could have 128 gigs, and it's just this little tiny thing. It's like you could just have literally so much space in so little
My
physical space.
first computer had 20 megabytes of memory, and at the time it was like, you'll never need that much
Yeah.
space. That's insane. Who do you think you are, NASA?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Yeah, I had this phase back in high school. I'm a super nostalgic guy. And I was at that point super nostalgic about my old PS2 games. And so I had bought and then I was also like an eBay fanatic, like to a point where it was really a problem. I was buying Blu-rays and like, I mean, that was my rush. Like I'm like, yeah, I got, a used copy of Big Lebowski or something on Digibook, like a collector's edition. But there was this one, I wanted the GTA San Andreas, and the big feature of that cell that the seller wanted to let you know is that you've got a 50 megabyte memory card that has all of everything unlocked on San Andreas.
Oh,
You got
nice.
$1 billion, like all this stuff. And that's like 50 megabytes was a lot of space for even PS2 games. Like if you got the 50 megabyte, like you're set. You don't need to ever get anything else like that. And that's like what, 10, 15 years ago? And now it's like, you got to get a terabyte or you got to get 500 megabytes or whatever. And it's that's the starting kind of cap for a lot of like native drives inside of all those gaming.
A friend just gave me all of the Nathan Drake games.
Yes.
All the Uncharted games.
Yes.
And I was like, nice. And so I hit download on it, and they're like, insufficient space.
Yes.
And I was like, well, how much do I need? I thought I bought a PS4 Pro, and they're like, you're gonna need a ton more. So I had to buy an external hard drive to hook up, and it's like, I'm not gonna delete my DuckTales. Disney
They don't mess
Afternoon
around.
Adventure. No.
Yeah, they don't mess around anymore. I mean, the graphic, like the graphics are incredible, and I've got a PS3. I'm so behind on all that stuff.
That's my most recent console too.
Yeah.
When I buy a console, it's typically 10 years after the last one came out.
Yeah.
Like PS2, I was a PS2 kid as well, so that I was current with that one because that was when we were in high school when that came out, and that just owned my life forever. But then after that,
That was a huge. Isn't that the most successful gaming console
think
ever?
it
Or
is.
it
Yep.
maybe the Wii actually?
No, I think it could be the Wii, might be the PS2.
I feel like it's the PS2 had like 6 designs that came
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Don't remember because
The
you had
big fat
the original,
one.
then then you had the slim, and then you had the domed one, and then you had the one that the little tiny like disky one.
Yeah.
and
It might have the record for the biggest library. It might be
Sure,
that
sure.
because I think
It was
I-
the Renaissance.
But it also was the first really successful Blu-ray player too. Like, that was a
Yes.
huge aspect
that was
of
the
it.
PS3.
that was the PS3.
Oh, it was the PS3.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
but I remember thinking that the PS2 was really cool because you could play
Like
DVDs on it.
DVDs on
yeah,
it,
It
right?
became most people's DVD player, which
Right.
was one of the reasons why you're right. Like it was such
just
a
huge.
massive success.
You didn't even
Also-
need a DVD
Yeah.
player. Yeah.
I feel like Dance Dance Revolution came out, and it was like they had a home edition
Right?
that like
Guitar
tons of
Hero?
people had.
Oh, yeah.
Guitar Hero.
Guitar
there
Hero.
You go.
Yep. Guitar Hero. You don't mess around.
You do not see a pawn shop without a Guitar Hero guitar in it sitting somewhere. Just
the
like
Dance
you don't
Dance
see
Revolution mats, those are sacred. And I see, like, I don't know if it's what would it be, probably on Instagram or something, people still using the Dance Dance Revolution mat to like navigate their, navigate their, I don't even know if they're what they're navigating, but somehow they like jailbroke it so they could navigate their TV. So they're, everything they have to get to Netflix, you do a little step touch. It's funny.
It is amazing though how nostalgic we get for old gaming systems.
Oh yeah.
During like the lockdown phase of the pandemic, I pulled out all of these Rubbermaid bins that I had that were full of my Nintendo, Super Nintendo games. Like pulled out my Sega after we went and saw Sonic. And
Oh, perfect. Yep.
to me, like I was like, oh my God, I'm loving these, with the exception of like trying to find a television that they worked perfectly on was impossible. That's why I'm jealous of you and your CRTVs.
I got into RGB gaming a couple years ago. Do you know what that is?
I have used that term like wrong before. So what is it?
It's used for a million different things.
Okay.
So you probably used it correctly for something else.
Okay.
Red, green, blue is what it's standing for.
Okay.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, PlayStation 1 and 2, a lot of these old Dreamcasts, I think, they can output an RGB signal natively. And what that means is that what we were all used to was a composite signal that would go into our old CRT TVs.
Yeah.
And it just composites everything into one signal and it goes into the back. Well, you can actually get those to have the red, green, and blue channels come out on their own as long as you have a TV that has red, green, and blue inputs on the back.
Right.
Now, in North America, CRT TVs were never made like that.
Oh, okay.
But they were in Europe, they were in Japan. So you could get RGB signals out of these old consoles unless you were to get what I've got, which is called a PVM or a BVM, a broadcast video monitor or a professional video monitor.
This is intense.
I got mine from WDIY for free because they were just getting rid of it. And it's a heavy CRT TV. It weighs like 500 pounds.
Does it have like the huge dinosaur back?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yes, it's massive.
Super heavy.
Super heavy. And it's got BNC connectors in the back for the RGB input. And if you get the right cable for it, it makes Sonic 2 look insane. It is so much better than a composite video output.
Oh my God.
And you're still in a CRT TV, which is what these games were designed for.
Right.
They're for the right that resolution. So I'm big into RGB, so I play my PS2 with RGB cables, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so cool. It's like a breathing new life and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
Oh
those
my
things
God, that's
they're collected and they're hard to find. I got really lucky that WDIY was like, this thing's just taking up space in our basement. We don't want it. I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That we just did a short film in March. This was back in when this was before the pandemic or anything. I think like just on the brink. It was like 2 weeks before. But we had just managed to shoot this short film, and it's called Midnight Curry, and it's about this basement turned restaurant, Indian makeshift basement turned restaurant hosted by the mysterious Mr. Shalaparwala, and this family comes in and they're on a road trip back from their grandma's funeral, and they want a place to eat, and the father's feeling nostalgic about his mom's Indian cooking, so they stop at this place called Midnight Curry. They go downstairs, and the host, has just this absolute visual smorgasbord of a ton of different, knickknacks and lights and everything, and he's got this fat, TV with like the mahogany top and everything, this fat TV, and it's playing a 90s training video and everything. And I right after we wrapped, I'm like, I am claiming that TV, because you could like the kind of manipulation you could do on the screen. Like we were manipulating all sorts of colors and like all of the different qualities of image qualities and everything like that. So it was like this really, for its time, this really advanced, super dexterous TV, but it's got like the VHS console. And like I clearly I'm, moving backwards, because I used to just collect Blu-rays and all that. And I just wanted to collect all these like VHS copies of all my favorite movies and put it in my bedroom. But it's kind of crazy.
It's a good sickness to have, man.
It
really is.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are in the same boat who actively still collect VHS tapes and have like an older monitor because they actually look good on that monitor.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's fun. It's fun to have these objects.
It's like the way I saw it too, because then we were just having fun and some of the production design was a lot of these old VHS tapes. So we were plugging a few through, and I plugged in Temple of Doom and just watched that. Like it was like watching it, because the format is so different. It's like the cassette or well, it is the cassette. It's like the vinyl, equivalent of movie watching.
It
it's
is
like
an
a new
entirely
experience.
different experience. Yep,
Exactly.
without a doubt.
So if I'm gonna watch, I've got my completely restored and remastered copy of Temple of Doom, but then I want to have that more analog copy of it because there's that X factor. It's like a texture piece, or there's something. The imperfections of it is so attractive to me.
There are movies that are only available on VHS too. Like there are, since you're a film collector, there are a few people I'm going to put you in touch with who are massive
Mike
VHS.
Schultz,
Mike
I
Schultz
imagine,
is one. Greg Carlson's another one.
Greg Carlson, I bet.
Who are big time movie collectors, and Mike specifically worships VHS.
I love that.
And regularly buys, and he knows movies that are only available on that were never released. There are also things like the TV show Northern Exposure. If you get it on VHS, you're actually getting it the way it was broadcast, but the music rights didn't last. So if you were to buy it now on Blu-ray, whatever else it's available on, you're getting a totally different soundtrack.
Oh my God.
So if you're a completist and you for something, you might need to track down the VHS copies of stuff. So there are movies that I want to own every version of the copy. So the very first Ninja Turtles movie, I've got it on VHS, I've got it on DVD, I've got it on Blu-ray. I'll be buying it on 4K pretty soon. If it's available on 4K, I haven't even checked. I'm assuming it is, but
before even who knows what's next too with 4K. 4K is now a few years old, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it'll essentially be. I mean you can always just go up.
Yeah.
The human eye really can't resolve past 2K for the most part. So going up to things like 4K and stuff like that has more to do in the post-production world, or if it's a TV monitor that has this many lines of resolution, visually you probably wouldn't be able to discern unless you were to take 2K and put it up on just the biggest screen ever, but even then you're probably not going to see it. So my guess is that it might be something where not only are they maintaining that high fidelity of visual, but they're also compressing the file size. It might be something where they're actually making the files much smaller, making streaming a lot easier, or keeping a digital library a lot easier.
I don't like the digital library idea.
It is terrifying to me.
It's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, I like that tangible piece of just holding it in your. I mean, there's a real catharsis to holding it in your hand. I've always gone back to that, and I just started like a vinyl collection a couple of years ago. I didn't have a record player before then, or a turntable before then. But even still, it was like the same sort of feeling that I had when I was collecting these Blu-rays, and it comes in the mail, you open it, it's just like kind of this rewarding experience. And it's dangerous, but totally rewarding. and you're so right. I mean, we've done when we do exports, there's a specific format called DCP, and that's where you that's the proper export format for movie theater screenings. So when we're at festivals or something, when we need to prepare DCP, usually the conventional format is still only 1080p, even though you could go to 4K. So it's interesting. I mean, it's like you can only go so far, I feel like, but that might be closed-minded too, because there is so many possibilities. Like I've got a LG. We've got this. I love it. It's just incredible. It's this LG 4K. I think it's like AI Think, whatever. I don't know the specific model of it, but it's this totally state-of-the-art TV. It's got like whatever this means, but it's just impressive to say. It's got 4 million regions. If you were to ever see black on the screen, it's not black light. It's literally turned off.
So it's an OLED screen then, probably, or something like that?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Yep. So it's just it turns off. So even we were watching The Firm with Tom Cruise a week ago.
I just watched that movie too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe
I was like courtroom dramas. I'm feeling them today.
I was feeling. I mean, it's slow at some points, but I was definitely feeling the vibe of that. But
add a Civil Action, because if you enjoyed The Firm, a Civil Action was a John Travolta movie that kind of went to the wayside, but it's really good. It's based off of a real life case too. William H. Macy's in it. Tony Shalhoub. Yeah, I know. Doesn't it sound like 90s? A dream team? Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh. John Travolta slept on. He's got a lot of. I just watched Face Off a couple months ago for the first time.
Whoa!
Like there is some iconic stuff in there. Like
That's how I know how to stab somebody. Is you stab it and then you have to twist the knife. I was like, I didn't know that. So like if I ever stab somebody, you know that JJ took a note from Face Off.
Oh my God, that is perfect. Yeah, that John Woo and the combination of John Woo and John Travolta and Nick Cage together is dynamite. Like I was kind of shocked at how much I was totally on board with that movie, like from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, I've always wanted magnetic boots too. Yeah. Like I was like, what a great idea for a prison, right?
Exactly.
All right, I interrupted you. So you were watching The Firm, and
I was just saying that even there, you know, and I don't know if we rented it on Amazon Prime or something like that, but just by means of kind of manipulating the image, just by taking away the turning off the TV, like having those little pixels turned off when it's darker shades. Like there's a what's the word? It's just there are still ways to kind of elevate the quality of those older films, and it's just going to keep going. Like it's just like they're going to find ways, and especially with films that are shot on film. I mean, when you have a tangible base like a celluloid, it only matters what the scanner, you know, the technology behind the scanner is what can, you know, totally shoot it through the roof and make it look just like it was made yesterday.
Are you ever amazed when you watch something that's been ported onto Netflix or, you know, even like a VHS copy, and they used the dirtiest, most damaged print to scan? I was
a lot
watching
of Blu-rays like that.
Right,
a lot
yeah.
of Blu-rays like that.
You look at a
What
shot
is-
and you're like, what? They look like claymation. Like it looks like the complexion is all off and everything.
Or you see like like the little scratch damages. And
Yeah.
I'm like, was there
The
only
artifacts.
one copy of The New Guy left in a vault somewhere? And it was, we've checked this out about 50 times. But
Yeah.
you can use it if you want a DVD, I guess.
Someone back this up on a hard drive somewhere.
Oh yeah, you would be surprised, I feel like, about where those conversions come from or where the base of them come from.
Well, and
Stuck in a box in a basement somewhere.
I know for a long time studios didn't value the idea of making a digital copy, and then I really feel like the
Fascinating.
Universal fire changed everything. Where they were like, oh my God, we can't just rely on, you know, these storage vaults. We need to move stuff over. We need to, and you know, that was mainly music.
Right.
But even that is like,
Yeah.
we've got to have secondary copies. We've got to have different places just so that, you know, obviously you've got an original, but if you have a direct replica of the original, that is worth its weight too, if you happen to lose that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I that's so funny that's how they were thinking back then. Just because it's so different
Right.
now, you know, it's like you have a copy. If you have one, you don't have a copy. If you have one and a copy, what is it? If you've got one, you don't have anything. If you have one and a copy, you still don't have anything. But if you have one and two copies, you have one copy. That's that's the mindset, especially even in the age of G drives and the cloud and everything. It's just there's such an attention to that, because it would just suck if you lost it, you
Right.
know? And yeah, but as people coming from more of a tangibility standpoint, or not a tangibility standpoint, but having the physical copy, I don't know, it just clearly wasn't a concern or something. It just surprises me because it's just so much on the line if you lose it.
I've been watching a show on Disney Plus called Prop Culture, which I'm like over the moon about.
Really?
And it's a guy whose like life hobby has been collecting famous movie props and pieces like that.
That's cool.
And so they make a series, and each episode of the series follows him tracking down props from a particular Disney movie.
Okay.
And now that they own the Muppets, so like there's a Muppets episode, which makes me go crazy. And one of the things he discovers is that, you know, the thing that no one ever talks about is, so not only do the Muppets have to be made and performed, but someone has to make the costumes for them. So like when Kermit the Frog is wearing a tuxedo, some costumer made a Kermit the Frog sized tuxedo. And so he finds a bunch of the like costume pieces from it. And, but I was just listening to him on a podcast talk about the fact that, you know, movie studios don't keep sets and props. Like it's not something you can afford to do.
Yeah.
And also you don't know if that movie is going to be important, because so he talks about like when they made Mary Poppins, Disney was all about it, but he goes, they destroyed those sets immediately after Mary Poppins. And so anything that exists is because somebody took it and was like, I like this. I'm going to put it in my garage.
Oh my gosh. And then it's just there.
And it's there. And so like 50 years later, someone's like, oh, we're doing the big 50th anniversary of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I got one of the carousel horses in my garage.
Oh.
And they're like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God, that's priceless.
And I guess Joe Dante, the guy who directed Gremlins and Inner Space,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite directors,
Yeah.
his garage is full of props from the movies he's directed. And so people walk
Smart
in there
man.
and they immediately just geek out and they're like, it's the Peltzer Peeler Juicer. Oh my God. And so he'll bring some of these things to movies he's directing now and like kind of incorporate them into the background.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Which I love.
Have you guys ever seen Guillermo del Toro's? I don't know if it's. Yeah, no, it's he lives there. It's I think there's like a museum copy, but his actual residence, I think in L.A., is just riddled with all either his props from his own collection of movies, but
I'd
like
believe it.
classic horror memorabilia.
Yep. I went to the like, so he just curated a museum piece that like traveled around the country,
Okay.
and the Walker had it in Minneapolis.
Really?
And I went to it, and yeah, and they're like, these are all in the private collection. And so like he owned all the original artwork from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
like all of that, and then
Did he
pieces from his
or did he
movies,
produce that the adaptation a
believe
couple
he
years
did.
ago or last year? Okay.
which I don't feel got enough credit.
I gave a ticket to it, or I
Yeah.
spent money for a ticket. I mean, I loved it.
It's stuck with me. It stuck to my bones. I
Yeah.
was freaked out. That weird like woman,
Yeah.
that shape, like
looks like Jabba the Hutt kind of iterative. Yeah. Really, really kind of contained, just well-rounded, self-aware movie. Like
Yeah.
it knew what it was. I think it was PG-13 too, you know. I
So it
played
should
on
have
the
been
same notes as
accessible?
it. Yeah, I mean it was a good movie, and it was an August release, I think, which usually means it's kind of on the disposables, you know.
Yep.
But
At least
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't
enjoyed
September though.
Oh,
Although it
yeah.
has now changed what September is.
yeah,
Do you remember
totally.
when March used to be the month where they're like, if a movie sucks, we dump it in March. And
Oh.
now that's like, it's like Marvel March, right? Like
Yeah.
they're opening giant movies. Sonic
February.
the Hedgehog is massive.
Yep.
Marvel saw the
Black
opportunity.
Panther was
said,
February.
There's nothing we're competing with in that slot. So let's go right there.
Yeah,
People are going to watch our movie. It's Marvel. Come on, man.
I know. No, yeah, and it was I think January has become the new March. But even then, I mean, because they're so smart because they have limited releases for all the Oscar contenders in the year prior, but then they do the wide release in January
Right.
just so they
Like, that's
have
what
something
1914 happened last
yeah,
year.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. No one got to really see that until January unless you're, on other sides of the coast, but yeah, it's kind of crazy how that shifts everything around. And then I actually I've been thinking about just that very thing and how once everything opens up again and once hopefully movie theaters open up again, or whichever ones survive, what is that going to look like? Because we've got a system now where I don't know if it's universal or whatever, but there's a lot of major studios that are totally embracing the idea of just having a digital theatrical release, essentially.
Yeah, that VOD and theater same day, and
Mhm.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and then
and-
VOD, that's been creeping around for a little while too, because they've been taking advantage of that for more indie movies. Because that's the thing, it's just we're lucky because we have the Fargo Theater, and I mean the kind of titles that they get their hands on over the last decade has been incredible. I mean, I think for the most part they've pretty much been able to acquire every single Best Picture winner at some point or other. I know that they had, for a second, they had Whiplash and Birdman playing in the same time. I mean, they've got that draw, plus they've got the draw of just the history of the venue itself. But I worry about, other the AMCs and the Marcus Theaters, whether or not they'll feel inclined to grab those more indie pictures, or if it'll be more of an event-based industry, and they're gonna come out with the Bonds and the the Quentin Tarantinos and all of that. But that's kind of the mark that they draw.
On Friday, a New York state judge repealed the Paramount Act. Are you familiar with the Paramount Act?
Nope.
Have you ever heard about the Paramount
We
Act?
talked about it a little bit with Tristan.
So the Paramount Act
Yeah.
was a piece of legislation passed in the 1940s that said movie production companies can't own movie theaters. And it was the idea that if Paramount makes this movie and they own movie theaters, they're only going to put it in theaters that they have a stake in. So places like the Fargo Theater wouldn't be able to get access because it would be playing at the Lark because the Lark is owned by a Paramount company.
Right.
And so as an antitrust, a big government like antitrust suit against these exhibitors in movie theaters.
Yeah.
Well, that has kept companies like AMC and Marcus, and they've the worst that happens to them is they have to agree to show Star Wars on their biggest screen for 14 weeks.
Yep.
Right? So this also includes bundling, which is like, sure, you can show Star Wars, but you also have to show these other 6 movies.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially it's kind of taking them and handcuffing them to studios' whims. Well,
That's
now
no
studios
bueno.
getting in on the ownership could change things drastically. So if Disney decides they're going to open up a chain of movie theaters and they open one in Fargo, no longer will the Marvel movies be at one of the big theaters.
Yeah.
You won't see it in Dolby 6.1.
Yeah.
And so this last Friday, that was the nail in the coffin for, I feel like, a lot of movie theaters around the country because first the Academy makes the change of like, nope, listen, anything released on demand or on a streaming service is now eligible for an Oscar this year. We're making a 1-year temporary change. Well, that didn't mean that Tenet came out any sooner.
Yeah.
Are we still going to see that before the end of the year? I don't even know.
I know they had it. It was July because he usually has his quintessential slot of like mid to late July, and then they pushed it to August. And I was thinking that it would be this big event where the all movie theaters. Not all movie
like
theaters,
a rebirth.
But yeah, kind of a rebirth, kind of pioneered by this Nolan release, which would have been perfect in theory, but then they moved it to August, and now I think it's I don't know if there's a set release date now.
I think that it's kind of like hovering right now.
Yeah.
Well, then
They might watch how Bill and Ted does.
right, I absolutely.
Oh,
They
sure.
could.
Is that an August release?
That's right now. It's
August
set for
28th.
August, and
Okay.
that could be the canary in the coal mine. Like, well,
Yeah.
how's this going to do?
Yeah. I'm trying
Which
to
is a
think.
weird movie to put all of the eggs
But it's
into
also like
that
the
basket.
but you know what? It feels like it's the only movie in the world right now, though, doesn't it? Is it really the only one that's really
I've been seeing
coming
a
out?
lot of marketing and media for that movie.
Yeah.
It's also like such a nostalgic draw too for
Right.
for everybody.
I don't know
But-
what I'm more sad about: the loss of movie theaters, the loss of Keanu Reeves' goatee. I think he should have kept it for this movie.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Weird tangent. Do you see that they're doing John Wick 4 and 5 back to back?
Mhm.
I'm so excited
Whoa.
about that. Those have been some of the most refreshingly fun movies I
yeah.
have seen in the last decade.
They're inventive. They're colorful. I mean, like the cinematographer behind those movies is like totally in the swing of what people are wanting.
They understand, like, I've never made a movie, right? But it seems to me that there are so many people involved in making a major Hollywood film that at one point you lose sight. It's not possible that all these people can be on the same page with the same idea of what this movie's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you get a director who directs this awesome movie, and then a writer who writes an awesome movie, and then the actors who are great in it, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, the studio thinks this would be better if it was PG-13 instead of R.
Mhm.
And then the
Put a
marketing
dog in it.
Yeah, then the marketing department.
Except for John Wick, that worked.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
really worked in John Wick.
Oh yeah,
But-
and they play on it too.
Right.
It's like all this for a dog. And
Yeah.
he's like, you're damn right, you know.
Yeah.
And you get it. You're behind it because it's just they're all in 100%.
Yep.
Everybody is in, and yeah, I mean that is probably the best model for how you go. I don't even know if you'd classify it as a B movie because there's just so much craft behind it. But that is the model for just entertainment, good entertainment. And now it's spawned a lot of really capable directors like I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Lee Whannell, who actually I just realized he was in Saw. He was the supporting character in Saw and a couple of other horrors like Insidious and stuff like that. But he directed Upgrade, which was a kind of the same, playing off the same notes of John Wick, where it's just this really colorful, neon grunge kind of, horror action film about this guy who gets this this implant in the back of his spine that allows him to just be a super machine, or like a super weapon. And then he did Invisible Man too. So there's this really exciting kind of wave of small contained action cinema. It doesn't need to be the franchisey, Mission Impossible, or Mission Impossible is kind of the model for big action movies. But
Here's the problem with the Mission Impossibles, right?
tell me.
So Ethan Hunt is going to live because this is a giant franchise. They've already greenlit the next movie already. And so even when they put Tom Cruise in utter peril,
Yep.
He has to survive.
Yep.
Which to me, that's part of the problem with superhero movies and all these things, is where that they're ultimately going to live. I think that's why people took, spoiler alert, Tony Stark's death to heart, to be like, oh my God. But now they're finding ways to be like, no, we'll incorporate him in future movies. He uploaded his consciousness. So don't worry. So we'll have a voiceover and a hologram.
They find their way. Yeah.
But sometimes when someone dies. That okay. So the most shocking death I have ever experienced in a movie, bar none. I was sitting right next to Tucker when we saw Serenity.
Oh
yeah, and I went, no.
Yeah, I was visibly upset. I was like, "That's the best character.
Oh
this is
gosh.
a dream sequence, right? He's gonna pop back up or something.
Yeah.
And missed all of his vital organs.
Yeah.
No, he's gone.
Mhm.
Severed his spine.
bold.
He's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's
It's
done.
good. I think there's a lot their TV now has, I think, not made it more all right, but has kind of popularized the execution of beloved characters.
Yeah,
Like,
everyone's
Thrones and-
expendable.
yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, everyone's at stake to be that, and that's what makes everything so much more interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of cheating the system when it comes to, the dollar sign attached to a character like Tony Stark, and
Right.
the possibilities behind incorporating him again.
In The Sopranos, it was always like, yeah, it's on the table that Tony could die at the end of this.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know he's going to make it to the end.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah,
But and at first when they first ended that series, I was mad about it. But then
Mhm.
as I've
Don't
grown
stop.
with it, I've been like, no, it's actually fantastic.
Yeah.
Where they're like, you don't get the satisfaction.
Oh, yeah.
You only get the
Revolutionary.
question. That's all you really get for the greatest television character of all time.
I think it's been now 5 years. Of course, I'm just, you can't escape knowing. I guess I can't escape knowing the ending of the show, and I've known it forever. But I'm on season 3, and it's taken me 5 years to get to that point, because it's just that I'm a huge mafia, gangster movie lover, and obviously TV lover, and it's always there. It's always so easy to just get right back into that world and that story. So it could be like a 5-month hiatus that I'm not watching The Sopranos, and then I go right back into it. And it's like, why did I ever leave this?
Sopranos is the
rich.
pinnacle. It's the peak, especially with mobster stuff. But I'm of the mind that it's the greatest show of all time,
I think,
and that
yeah.
he's the greatest character of all time.
Yeah.
And the combination of James Gandolfini and David Chase as collaborative partners
Yeah.
is just, we could do a whole podcast
Unstoppable.
where we would just talk about The Sopranos
Oh,
for
heck yeah.
hours. That's how much I love that show.
And it's different than Goodfellas, and it's different
Very
than
much so.
than The Godfather, because it's
Well, those movies exist in the world of The Sopranos, right? Because those
Yeah.
mobsters
They
love
talk
those
about it, yeah.
movies.
I love that.
They
Yeah.
love so that you're getting what feels like it's mobster culture commenting on itself, which is
Exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's too smart for its own good. And it's clumsy. That character is just so flawed, and you see all of that, like the basis of setting him, this kind of narrative motif with him and his psychiatrist
Yeah,
or his therapist
But you root for him.
Yeah.
Right? He's an evil person, but you're on his side. You're rooting
Yeah.
for him
all the time.
because you're seeing how he still experiences the human condition.
Yeah,
There's this great thing once you've watched the show and then you finished it up and you're like digesting stuff.
mm-hmm.
You should go and you should read the eulogy that David Chase made for James Gandolfini's funeral.
Mm.
Because in it, he details a scene that he had thought about including in the show one time, but they never shot. And he reads it. He basically describes it in the thing. And he does such a good job describing it that it'll create, I swear to you, a false memory in your head where you'll go, no, I saw that scene. I remember that scene. It doesn't exist. But in my head, it's the final scene of Tony Soprano. And it's so good. But you wouldn't be able to really fully get it until you've seen the whole show.
Right.
Then go and read David Chase's eulogy to James Gandolfini.
So sad.
It's going to break your day, but also make your day.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait because that's something I'd totally eat up. But yeah, it's interesting to see with that show especially. There's a strange respect between, you've got this family and you're so involved in the Sopranos family and even the nuclear family, and you would think because it's such a beloved show and it's, you would think everybody would just be so chummy and so in each other's personal lives and everything off screen. But it was interesting to see that. I don't know where I saw this. It must have been, but it was straight from Edie Falco, who plays his wife. I'm blanking on her name.
Yep.
Carmela.
Yeah. And she talked about how her and James Gandolfini off screen didn't really interact much outside of that. There was this strange like loyalty to their on-screen predicaments that I don't know if it was something they had planned or if it was something that like just kind of happened organically, but they showed up on set and you just, I don't know, maybe it's the culture of just seeing all these behind the scenes and interview, campaigns and stuff with even the Avengers, and they've got to just be the bestest of friends, but it doesn't always pan out that way. And it wasn't that there were feuds on set, but it was like this really almost further respect for the show and for the kind of the craft of it that they didn't really intersect in each other's personal lives off screen, which is crazy because the kind of things that they have to be pushed to do, their characters have to be pushed to do, is really vulnerable. And so I don't know. It's fascinating.
Both Andrew Eiler and Jamie Lynn Sigler, who played AJ Soprano and Meadow Soprano, they've never watched the show. And the only reason I know that was they were recently guests on the Your Mom's House podcast. They have their own podcast. I think it's called Pajama Pants or something like that. And Jamie Lynn Sigler is just now watching through The Sopranos. So she's like, I think she's almost where you are right now in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
She's like in the middle of season 3. Like she grew up making that show, but she never ever watched the show. And he has never watched the show and has zero intentions of ever watching the show.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I know.
That's incredible.
Hey, let's talk about what you do a little bit too.
Okay.
Like we've had this wonderful breakdown. So
Geeking out.
Obviously you're somebody who loves to create, Devon. Like obviously, like it's been a part of you for a long time. And so you went to Moorhead High. I mean, you were a part of the fantastic productions there. What happens after you leave the area?
Yeah. So yeah, I did everything that was that kind of made me feel, creatively fulfilled in town. There was obviously the arts community in general here is just fantastic, and the film community is only growing, which is super exciting to see.
It's surprisingly active, I think, to people.
Yeah, I mean, I've now been here in the last few months, so it's cool to see that, and I've been to the film festivals or the Fargo Film Festival ever since I was young. So it's just cool to see that growing too. They're getting more days and stuff. But I obviously, was more involved in theater and kind of the Moorhead High program that you go through. You go through the speech program, and then you go to Act Up, and then you go back to fall musicals and stuff. And that was great. It was a way to exercise kind of the storytelling facet of my mind and everything. But I'd always loved film, and I was always monkeying around with film, perhaps even a little bit more even than behind the scenes than theater. But once I left, I went to Savannah College, or I'm currently enrolled in Savannah College of Art and Design. This will be my senior year this fall. And I'm a BFA in film and TV there, and just kind of colliding with the like-minded people that I kind of naively didn't think would be as great as they are was super liberating. And ever since I've been there, I've just been involved in some of the coolest projects that are all student led. And
do you think
just
that the non-competitive but cooperative nature of theater, the fact like, yep, we're all in this on the stage at the same time.
Yeah.
All of these need to work at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you think that helped you when working with people in the film industry, which is really more
compartmentalized?
focused?
Or
Yeah.
It is interesting because there's a weird camaraderie that comes with theater that might not be apparent in film. But and the one thing that is a little different is that because time, the element of time and kind of the expedited process of film creates a little bit more of an urgency when you're on set and everything. But there is a similar understanding of everybody's roles and just a total respect of what everybody is doing on set. I don't know who I was telling, but when I know that a certain, grip and electric team are on our set, that makes me just as happy than knowing, we've got our go-to composer. Like the fact that they're there, you feel good and you feel comfortable because everybody just has this universal respect for the outcome of the project. And that's something that's always, shared with the kind of the theater world that I was involved in. But it's just, I don't know. It's different and the same. But it can be grueling, but it can also be extremely rewarding in the same way. And so I don't know. I definitely think that I've taken a lot though from my experience in theater and just the kind of the compassion that comes with being, involved in a theater company and having that sort of interaction and vulnerability and stuff. I hope that I can bring that, to a film set where tensions can be higher or stakes can be higher. But yeah, it's different and the same. It's crazy. There's just when you're surrounded by creative people, it's just that's where the home is. I guess I feel like I could go and be drawn to any creative community and still find this similarity of just total devotion to the craft and everything. And that's what's so that's what I always go back to for sure.
Well, and working in or studying in Savannah, in a state that has the most film production going on and television, it must be amazing. I mean, you must have access to stuff that people never even thought. Like, there must be a bulletin board at your school that is just crazy full of like, hey, we're looking for someone to come out and help with this. Or like, have you ever wanted to be on a set with this? Or midnight shooting in a swamp here. For the people who don't know, Georgia has done better than, in my opinion, than any other state to market itself as a place to come and film. So, I mean, almost all the Marvel movies have a Georgia set. They've made Atlanta look like New York.
It's
They've made
Yollywood now.
Yep,
they call it Yollywood, which is funny.
And it has brought so much money to the state. I've been harping for years that North Dakota needs to get in on this because
I hope
every Western could be shot up here for the rest of time.
I know. Even Dan Glazer's Valley of Bones, that was shot in the Badlands, and it looks incredible. Which actually the cinematographer was a SCAD grad for that.
Oh,
movie.
really?
Yeah. So it's kind of cool, but totally. And with being based in Savannah, so that's same distance from Moorhead to Minneapolis, so it kind of is the same way. But there's a lot of projects that do come to Savannah, like the square right by my apartment is where they shot the live action Lady and the Tramp. The Boulevard, Broughton Street, which is kind of the Broadway of Savannah. They shoot a ton of stuff. There was a Will Smith movie that was just shot there. Oh no, it was Gemini Man. So that was shot a couple of years back. So it's this sampling of what you would be doing in Atlanta, or what you might possibly be doing in California or New York. And there's always calls. There's like always crew calls for swinging days, on set, being a PA or being a camera assistant or everything like that. But it's always available and it's always accessible. So the school the university does a really good job of integrating the industry right smack dab into your schooling experience,
which is just amazing.
It's really incredible. And I think, it's always been there ever since I've been there. So I might take it for granted a little bit, but the possibilities there of getting real industry experience and being able to kind of have that, not that freedom to fail necessarily, but have that freedom of trial and error when you're on those sets, and then you're learning and just the whole paradigm of that experience at SCAD is so totally catered to career success. I feel like I'm a spokesperson right now for him, but
I feel like I'm
true.
reading a full sale ad right now.
I've definitely been, I've been around that to kind of know what to say, but it's totally true. It's just they are dangerous as far as how well they can integrate the student body into the world. And they are the University for Creative Careers. That's their slogan. And they certainly meet that, especially or specifically in the film department, because that's the experience that I have there. But yeah, I've noticed too, I like everybody, I feel like my age back when I was a senior, I was striving in the pursuit for being a USC student, and I applied and everything, and got the small letter back and everything, and that was tough at first. And strangely enough, SCAD was the first university that I applied to, and it was the first one I heard back from as a confirmed yes. And now I've realized that I think SCAD was just the perfect storm. It was the perfect, and I would have never known that before, going there and doing it, but I'm really sitting really happy and grateful that ended up being the place I went. I don't know if there's any other university, because I didn't know what was right for me then. But it's really cool and awesome that I'm sitting here now in my senior year and feeling really good about where I went or where I'm going,
Well, and you're not somebody who waited until you were done with school to start doing stuff.
Yeah.
You already have a career. You've already done some stuff, which is just amazing to me, because that's one thing I could tell even when you were just a young man was like, you don't let the grass grow under your feet. Like, I imagine that if there's a classroom setting and someone says, could someone help with this? And your hand goes up.
Yeah.
Because you're a guy who likes to do stuff all the time. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I feel like they always say that, SCAD is the place where everything is on the table. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to, eat it. Like it's what you make of it. And so, yeah, there's a couple of productions on set that I got to do right in freshman year. I remember I had kind of landed there. We're by the quarter system, so we go, a quarter in the fall, quarter in the winter, and quarter in the spring, and then there's an optional quarter in the summer. But the first quarter I was there, I just wanted to get acclimated. I wanted to, get to know people and feel like I had a good, good friend group and community of people I could always go to, film or not. I think at that point there was more fashion majors and design majors and stuff like that. So I wanted to be there and feel at home. And then it was the winter quarter where I wanted to get involved in some of the SCAD initiatives. There's a VFX SCAD initiative that they always do yearly. That I was a part of the Grip and Electric team. So I'm setting up lights and rigging up different light setups and stuff like that. Getting that experience and being able to kind of just play the field there a little bit. But then there's also really cool affiliations, programs that are affiliated with the school, like the Coca-Cola. Well, now it's the Coca-Cola Refreshing Films program, where it's been a long-running program where Coca-Cola kind of offers the opportunity for young filmmakers to make a Coca-Cola ad based in kind of the landscape of film appreciation. So they've done partnerships. When we were a part of it, they did a partnership with Regal Cinemas. So it was Coke at the movies, kind of. That was their slogan.
You say that so nonchalantly, but so many people saw the short film you made.
Oh, well, I'm glad. I'm super like I'm still almost like I'm over the moon about that, because just because of the fact that so just to back up here, we got to we were able to do that, and that was only because SCAD was so willing and supportive of our process of finally advancing to that position where we really could get the funding to shoot the commercial. But the idea that our commercial could be a part of the movie theater experience, for we premiered right before Avengers Endgame. That was our first kind of date of premiere, and it played before every single film in the Regal chain across the country. And
that is
just the idea of
bonkers.
That alone was so cool. The idea that people go to the movies and we're a part of that experience, because that is my sacred place. I've always said that, like, the movie theater is my sacred place. So the idea that I can just be a part of that experience for other moviegoers, whether they're probably thinking, just get on with it so I can get to the movie, but the idea that we could still be there and kind of I don't know, just be incorporated. That was the most rewarding part, for sure. I mean, that's all. I always go back to that, and that's what it makes me the most excited when I talk about it.
There's a Coca-Cola ad that I vividly remember from going to the movies. I don't even know if I was in high school yet, but it was a movie theater run by the mafia, and they were showing a movie called like Mafia the Movie.
The mafia always comes back.
Yeah, like you two people walk up and they're like, I would like two tickets. They were sold out, and he was like, hey, I got some tickets for it. And he's got a trench coat, and then they walk into the theater, and there's a guy with a baseball bat at the bottom. He goes, all right, yous, no talking during this movie. Do you remember this one, Tucker?
I do. I love that one.
Was this a Marcus campaign or
No,
AMC, right? Wasn't it AMC? I remember seeing
when
it.
I lived in Chicago.
Yeah, that's where we saw it. Was at the AMC in Chicago.
Funny.
So I remember those like crazy, and also like Rob Hubel. Do you know who that is? Like he's he's been in a ton of stuff. He's in some episodes of The Office, and he's a really funny guy. But he had a commercial series for Singular called The Annoying Talking Guy, and what they would do is take a still image and superimpose him in there like a wedding. And he's like, oh no, I'm telling you, man, she's hot. And like they keep going, and like it's all about like how you shouldn't be a loud talker in the movies.
Oh, sure.
And those ads were just hilarious.
Yeah.
And
so, they made an impression on you, which is awesome.
And it's stuck with me even to this point, to the point of where like I've tried to YouTube, and I'm like, I wonder if someone has loaded these commercials online so I can watch them again.
Yeah. I mean, even with the Greg Marcus pre-show things, that they're endearing and fun and everything, and that is something that without it I would feel like my movie experience would be incomplete. Like I enjoy like him coming up with his just funny quirky little deliveries and stuff like that, but that's all a part of it. It's a part. If you're going to go to the movie theater, that's going to be a part of the package,
if you're listening to this and you've never been to a Marcus brand theater, Greg Marcus, who's the president of this company, gives like an intro,
Local
and it's
celebrity.
like, hey, you know, help the United Way, or
Yeah.
ooh, I love scary movies, and he talks about going to the movies, and his dad is in some
Yeah.
of them, and his wife is in some of them,
Yeah.
and they're pretty cheesy, they're pretty corny,
Yeah.
but it's the pre-roll to every single movie, so
Yeah.
sometimes you'll see the same one for
For a long
25
time.
movies.
Yeah. And I bet so that's in that same way. I think people are probably sick of watching that 30-second run of everything, but it's all a part of it. Whether it's like the love-hate, just
right. People yell
Fondness
"Hi,
of it."
Greg," like when I'm in movie theaters. Have you
Hi,
ever
I'm
been in
Greg
one
Marcus.
where someone does
Hi,
that?
Greg.
Yeah, they go, "Hi, Greg." And here's the thing: do you know his Twitter handle? Because I do. Greg loves movies.
Yes,
like, I'm
yes.
like they show it enough that it is a part of my movie going experience.
It's quintessential. You can't go without it.
There even is the things that surround going to a movie theater have
Yeah.
become so comforting that
Yeah.
on Amazon Prime you can watch I think it's like an hour and 87 minutes or
Oh,
hour
I
and
watched it.
57 minutes.
The drive-in movie ads.
Yes!
I watched
Me
it 2
too!
weeks ago. I was like, yes, let's get into it.
It's all the like, let's all go to the lobby.
yeah.
But then it's like, I didn't know that they made all of this stuff. You know, like
I
kids
love
being
that
like,
they
we have a hot
compiled-
dog.
And it's all, it all circles around. I mean, it's so unsubtle. Like it's like
Yep.
concessions. Like that's all they talk about. But it's endearing, and it's like it's just it's nostalgic. It's just a part of it. It's all a part of it. And it's what separates. I mean, now Amazon is obviously tuning into it, but it is what separates watching it, you know, at home versus watching it in a movie theater, which is like,
I feel like Amazon's going to come up with some kind of Alexa-based technology that when you're watching a movie, it's going to start pumping like the smell of popcorn into your home or something.
for sure.
Please.
at least do that.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, just gonna make you just smell sodium right before we start, and then they'll have like a Prime button where you could buy Orville Redenbacher on Amazon and have it that day delivered by a drone, and it's
just
ready
watch.
to go.
Oh,
You know, if
yeah.
Marcus Sears was smart, that's what they would add to their app right now and be like, you watch a movie at home tonight?
Yep.
We'll
Yep.
make Tristan deliver some popcorn to you.
I just got a text from Tristan I think it was a week or two ago, and he's like, "Are you having popcorn withdrawals or Marcus popcorn with?" Because he cares about that piece so much, which is like the most respectable piece, that he gets the good butter, like he gets the expensive butter. There's an option to get the cheaper butter, and he chooses to get the expensive butter because he understands the experience behind it, and like, it's so important, and it's such a universal thing that everybody can come together, and it goes back to the Savannah College of Art and Design Film Festival that they have every year. They have it in October, and it's usually the last spot that a lot of really, really popular / critically acclaimed movies come after, you know, TIFF and I guess Cannes before that. And they understand the whole piece that of loyalty to kind of the movie theater experience and everything like that. But there's something so powerful because they've got these huge 2 venues, 1,000 seats, I think, per venue, maybe 600 in one of them. But one of them is like this Victorian style, you know, totally engulfing artwork, you know, dome-like venue that's amazing, kind of like the Fargo Theater. And then the other one is more just more standard, you know, kind of classical movie theater. But they're massive, and they're always packed when you go to the festival. And so we're watching even something like Lady Bird, I remember 2 years ago, which is this, you know, indie kind of contained movie, but there's 1,000 people all facing the same screen, all reacting to the same thing. And that's like, I would get so emotional just watching something like that because we're all in this together, watching the same thing. And it's so powerful, like that there's a feeling in the air. It's an X factor that you can't get anywhere else.
Do you remember the ads for Paranormal Activity when it first came out?
Yes.
Where it wasn't showing the screen, it was
It's
showing
showing
the
them.
audience having
Exactly.
this group reaction.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is brilliant
Yeah.
because that's what people want.
It's
Have you ever seen the
brilliant.
movie Matinee by any chance? It's
No.
John Goodman. It's on.
My man.
I think it's on. No,
he is a good man.
he is a good man.
John
It is
Goodman.
on Peacock. And so you can watch
Sure.
Peacock for
Okay.
free because they
Yep.
got the free tier.
That's what I've been hearing.
It's a Joe Dante movie, and it's set during the Cuban Missile Crisis, like during the famous 13 days. But John Goodman plays kind of an Alfred Hitchcock ripoff.
Okay.
And his thing is he makes schlocky movies like Crocodile, half woman, half crocodile. But he's got a new movie he's debuting called Mant, and he's bringing it. Yeah, and it's all about the fear of atomic power. So like, it's about like these are real scientists who've worked this out, and it's possible that gamma radiation from the fallout could make a man combine. So he's bringing this movie to Key West, Florida. And it's at back at the time where like he has one real copy of this. And so he tours around the country showing it. Plus he rigs up the theater so it's got rumble seats.
Oh my gosh.
He's got a guy who comes out in a Mant costume and the woman's screaming. He's like, he's in the theater. But it's about this kid who loves horror movies.
Yeah.
And it's sort of must be biographical for Joe Dante at the time. But it is without a doubt one of the greatest love letters to people who love going to movies that you will ever
I gotta
see.
watch it. Here, I'm
It
gonna
is
put it on my list.
so good. It's so good that it was only released on DVD in Portugal for some reason, and I bought a Portuguese.
Really?
Yeah, I bought a Portuguese DVD.
How old is it?
And then I had to buy a Region 2 DVD player for it. It's from the mid '90s. I mean,
Okay.
you'll recognize a lot of people and be like, "Wow, they're very young." In this movie,
Whoa,
like
yeah.
like Omri Katz
Yeah.
is in it, who is before he did the movie Hocus Pocus, and I think before he was in Erie, Indiana too. And so, but then like Bob Picardo is in it, who Bob Picardo is one of the greatest character actors.
Yeah.
Dick Miller is in it.
Yeah.
Kathy Moriarty plays not only the lead in the movie Mant, but also she plays John Goodman's girlfriend. And so like he does such a schlocky thing where everyone who comes to see the movie has to sign a waiver because it's so scary you might have a heart attack, which is based off of like a Roger Corman gag that he did back in the day to get people excited about it. Be like,
Yeah.
you can't buy a ticket until you've signed, this because
So
a woman had
freaking
a heart
smart.
attack and died in the theater.
So smart. It's like the same thing that they did with the Blair Witch Project. They would put up missing posters right
Right.
outside the theater.
Yep.
Because people thought, I mean, that was before. I'm trying to think if there were any other, just any other movies that were more buried and not as well recognized that did that. But it was the kind of this aggressive new wave kind of subgenre of really successful filmmaking and successful marketing, like that exactly, like with Paranormal Activity. Jason Blum, I think, acquired that, and based on, I mean, it was like a $15,000 movie, and I think it made, close to like 180 or 200 million dollars.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
$15,000. That was our budget for Coke Regal. That's a 30-second spot. And then you've got this $15,000 movie. I mean, it's possible. You can make it happen. You can shoot something that small and make it happen.
Were you surprised at how fast money went out the door when you were making your Coke Regal piece?
Yeah. $15,000 is a lot.
Are you having
But-
to work with like all union and stuff like that? Is
No,
that where you're at? Or?
Luckily not. We I'm trying to let me think back here, because we shot this last February or February before last, 2019. And we didn't have, it was it was like 120 to 140 person cast and crew all together with extras and the whole gambit. But we didn't have to do union. Other the other schools that year had gone union with a few roles. Some of the department heads, I know that a few of them hired a cinematographer or maybe a production designer. But we were just so confident, our team, that we have been doing films with since the beginning of my time at SCAD. We've stayed together, we've stayed tight, and we were always advocating for an all student led crew. But I think, yeah, $15,000 does go out the window with trying to flip a lobby. We were basically our production designer Jenna Tooley was incredibly incredible visionary for knowing the palette and everything that would accommodate not only the brand but would accommodate kind of our artistic vision on it. that old sort of 1950s timeless, classical matte neon light, marquee. She understood she's just so in tune with color in the design of her work. And she completely redid the lobby area. And so I know that we attributed a lot of budget to that, but even, when you're putting wallpaper across a whole wall, that itself is just like $300-$400. And so things just pile up, and then we were shooting out of town. So then you're trying to consider, room and board for all these people, and, knowing who can stay and who might have to go back to town for the night, all those sort of things. So
that's one of the amazing things about the volume. Have you been following that development? Basically, the technology they use to shoot The Mandalorian.
No. What's this?
So this is the thing that's going to blow your mind. This is the most recent thing that blew my mind in filmmaking, and it is the future of filmmaking. There's no question.
Okay.
Have you seen The Mandalorian?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Almost none of that is on location. Almost that entire thing is shot on a soundstage.
Yes.
Without green screen. What they have
is it rear projection, or what do they do?
What they have is they I don't know why they call it the volume, but there's a great video on it on YouTube, but you got to watch this.
Okay.
I've watched it 5 or 6 times now. So they're on a soundstage that's almost 360 degrees around them, LED monitors, just a giant LED monitor. And what they're doing is they're building all these environments with the Unreal Engine, which is used for video games. And then the actors are standing in this studio, and they're looking at a sunset that to them looks like a sunset and is being filmed like it's an actual sunset. You can shoot at dawn for as long as you want to.
It casts the appropriate light.
Casts the appropriate light because they've got lights and hanging up above it.
Sure.
So then the camera is actually filming instead of having to do a green screen that you're going to key in later.
Right.
It's an actual backdrop that's there. And then the camera is tied into the Unreal system as well, so it can tell which direction the camera is pointing, and it can create a parallax on the back to make it look like real.
Give me a break.
Almost every single interior and exterior set on The Mandalorian was not on location. It was in the volume, and I had no idea until after I'd finished watching the show and then watched that how-to. I listened to Bill Burr's podcast.
Yeah.
He's in that show.
Yeah.
He talked about it on his podcast. He's like, you guys are going to have your mind blown by what you see and he described what he saw, and I was like, I can't even picture what he's talking about.
Yeah.
There's footage of Jon Favreau like going, hey, that mountain, can we move that mountain over there? And they'll be like, oh yeah, hold on 1 second. And they just move the mountain over. And so basically, it looks like they're filming in Tunisia or wherever else they would go for Star Wars in the past, but everyone's just like living in the hotel next door.
And it looks incredible.
It looks fantastic.
That's it reminds me of what Stanley Kubrick did for 2001. He did a lot of rear projection technology work for the Dawn of Man sequence. And he was just like, it's unreal what he was thinking about, back then, and how he made the certain ingenuities that he made on that movie itself. But it was like, if you can look closer with knowing that all of these pieces were still photography then projected on this huge kind of all-encompassing dome screen projector, you can see some of the flaps kind of come up. I mean, it still looks incredible, but that kind of the essence of that sort of approach is as old as that. Like, he had that idea just before then, and now it's kind of unstoppable if you've got the technology and the money, that Disney money.
The volume is basically a newer version of matte paintings,
which
is what they would do for Star Wars and stuff. But it's so much better for so many different reasons. One, even really great green screen, when you look at it, more often than not, you can go, that's green screen. Marvel has been able in the past couple movies, in a few scenes, where I didn't realize it was green screen because it was so good. But now that they've got the volume to shoot on, it's a total game changer, because you're not having to worry about keying in stuff around. You have to rotoscope actors and stuff like that. Actors have actual things that they're looking at.
Yeah.
You can light the scene appropriate to the scene that they're in, because the screens themselves cast some light as well.
Yeah.
It's
that uncanny valley is totally eliminated because it's there.
It's unbelievable. And they were using
Capturing
it for so many interior scenes that I thought were just a room that they had built up. Like Werner Herzog's, his admiral's like office or whatever. That's the volume. The ship hangar that they're in when he's with the ragtag crew, that's the volume. When he's fighting Jawas.
Wow.
That's the volume. When he's on the ice planet, or when he's on the forested planet, or when he's at dawn and the sun is just rising, that's all the volume.
Isn't it crazy that we're kind of going around the loop now? Like there's this wave of the kind of CGI renaissance that is kind of best represented in the prequels, and everything was at the mercy of the technology, the CGI technology, and it had its flaws, it had its ups and downs on kind of the creative freedoms that you had with it. But now we're going back to a place where on that celluloid or on that digital scan, you have something that was filmed there physically, and it looks better. It looks better than a green screen, and it might have a lot more premeditation that is involved, but it ends up being just a total physical thing, that set piece that you have total control over. And I'm just thinking about the possibilities behind that, because you've got something like Star Wars, which is operatic and everything, but you could utilize that in some really creative ways.
Think of the costs you're saving by not having to travel, by not having to move all these people, and also
the time it takes to just move a mountain from one place to another, and
but you're also not worried about, we're losing daylight. It's like, no, it's dawn for as long as you need to shoot today.
Yeah.
We'll just bring it up. I mean, there's going to be its own costs associated as well, but
sure.
I gotta think. I mean, you could shoot the entire thing in Georgia,
Oh,
without
yeah,
having to
hands
go overseas or anything.
Is that where
else
they
like
shot
that.
it, by the way?
No,
or?
I can't remember exactly where. I don't actually know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but it might have been California. But I'm
That's
not
what they
sure.
did for Rear Window too. I think or maybe it was Rear Window, or maybe it was The Rope, or maybe it was both. But they had that set, and it was mostly confined to Jon Stewart's apartment. But they had the controlled lighting that would, kind of rise and set at the mercy of where the continuity of the scene. But it was all controlled. Again, it's like these old concepts of trying to stay economic and trying to stay efficient and everything way back in the golden age of cinema. That's just kind of being revisited right now and then CGI, it will be used in its own facets. Like I'm thinking of Alex Garland, he is like the champion of creative use of CGI with Ex Machina and Annihilation, like the kind of like the VFX artists and composite artists that he has on those movies create some of the most trippy, just totally interesting, unworldly kind of visual style with both kind of the integration of how it merges with their real life set pieces and everything. But he's giving power to these extremely creative VFX artists that, still need to work and everything. But because he's giving all that money to them on the basis of the totally original stories that he's creating, they've got this opportunity to create some things that are maybe not as not necessarily accessible, but definitely more interesting. Like these kind of the possibilities are just kind of endless a little bit.
When I saw Kingsman, which I loved, I loved the Kingsman movies. I can't. In fact,
my girlfriend loves Kingsman.
I just, for some reason, like it's like a James Bond for a new generation.
Totally.
Right? The main villain, Samuel L. Jackson, has like a sidekick, and it's played by Sophia Boutella, I believe is how you say her last name. But she has like razor legs, right? And so they have these great like stunt sequences, and I was watching a making of for it, and they said, yeah, we brought in a stunt coordinator, and we said, listen, when you're choreographing these stunt scenes, remember, we're going to put like swords on her legs. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, here's the plan. We're going to film the actual fight sequences, but remember, she's going to have legs made out of swords. And this guy was like, could you show me like an idea of what this looks like? And so he was over the moon at the idea of like, okay, so that changes the way I'm going to choreograph this fight scene. We're going to film it, and then you're going to go in and enhance it so it looks like, so it's not like a clumpy, like leg prosthetic that they put on.
It's seamless.
Yeah, and he just talked about like that is the perfect blending of old school and new school. And I know that a lot of stunt people are now sitting behind the, you know, the visual effects artists.
Yeah.
And they're saying like, gosh, you know, there's no weight to that. You know, you're doing this thing, you need to add weight to it. A human body.
Right.
And then they'd show them like a human body when it hits the wall goes like this.
Yeah.
And then they do like a fake, you know, stunt thing.
Yeah.
So that they can try and get that right, because as they improve their art, they're going back and listening to these old school, you know, masters of their craft.
Yeah.
So I love it.
I know. I'm just thinking.
Love it.
I think back to like RoboCop when the lead, the villain falls off and his like arms are like twice the size of his body, complete. Like he's just flailing in the wind as he falls down. It's just so laughable. But now you're right. Everybody is intermingling their own expertise, and it just makes it all the more better. I don't know if you guys seen the Corridor Crew on YouTube. They do like the VFX react and stuntmen react.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They're
Really
so
great
insightful.
series.
Yeah,
Really
great series. And they're all, you know, you've got these extremely successful and kind of brilliant VFX artists that lead the series, but then they bring in these guests of really successful VFX artists that you know are involved in movies and stuntmen, and it seems to mesh. It's because they're choosing to only feature stuntmen and VFX artists, and it's kind of just because at this point now, why see them as necessarily separate? I feel like they're all kind of integrated in
They're
the
all
same
effects. You could affect. You could say they're all effect people.
Right,
basically.
exactly. Right. Yeah, it's become.
They did a great one where they try to improve a shot from The Scorpion King.
Yeah.
With The Rock.
Yeah.
Where
It doesn't look bad.
their improvement looks a lot better
Yeah.
than what actually made it to the film.
Did they use deepfake technology?
That was part of it.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
the deepfake technology didn't exist at the time. So back then they had to create what looked like a PS2 graphical version of The Rock
Sure.
coming through. And
And he's just like the uncanny valley is just screaming.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just like
yeah.
you're so right. It's
Yeah.
like a PS2 graphic inside this very seemingly real world, or at least what they're trying to accomplish. But yeah.
Devon, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you
I'm
so much for
yeah,
being here.
I'm
We
psyched.
could probably talk for another 6 hours
I
if we
know.
wanted.
I'm not trying to figure out like there's just so much to talk about. But I appreciate you guys having me on and geek out and everything.
If people want to see some of the stuff you've done,
Yeah.
like do you have a Twitter handle? Do you have a website? How can people
I
access
wish
it?
I was better. I've got a social media. It's it can be personal sometimes and sometimes kind of film based and everything. I'm trying to think, what would I be able to give you guys that.
Can they still see your Regal Coca-Cola ad? Is
Oh,
that
sure.
accessible
Well, yeah,
somewhere?
you guys could totally check that out. It's on YouTube if you type in Coca-Cola Regal Films. I'm pretty sure we'll come up. It's called Choose Happy. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, everything is kind of in the barrel right now as far as film, you know, the short films that I've done and everything. But
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned, I suppose. Yeah. But
Love it.
yeah, check out Choose Happy if you want. So it'll give you a little taste of what we've been so missing these past few months, you know, not being able to go to the theater for sure. But yeah, thank you so much, guys.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. There's no such movie as Matinee. I totally made that up. So he's going to seek it out and he'll never find it. Or is that the lie?